Adam Holt. Chuck Eden.
Present.
Wendy Osborne. Lino Mendez. Chuck Riojas. Karen Musson. Larry Westernan. Brian Melcher. Bill Niger. Jen Guerra.
Present.
Joseph Amador.
Present.
Susana Ledesma.
Present.
Mia Moreno. Sarah Montemayor. Denise Torres. Karen Pearson. Greg Garcia.
Here.
Lee Delap.
Present.
Darren Rose.
Present.
Mark Scott.
Here on Zoom.
Nick Palladino.
Present.
Mona Cummings. Scott Miller. Alexander Naranjo. Gail Miller.
Present.
Wyatt Meadows. Marianne Cast.
Here.
Pastor Simon Bassell. Dr. Amber Crowell.
Present.
Dr. Esmeralda Diaz.
Present.
Veronica Kerebe. Mandeep Johal.
Here.
Gloria Hernandez.
Here.
Nayamin Martinez.
Here.
Evelyn Morales.
Here.
Cher Moa.
Here.
David Rivas. I'm sorry, Travis Alexander.
Here.
SP Sandoval. Okay. Lino Mendez and Wendy Osborne. Okay.
So how many do we have online? We have 7 online? Okay, so Larry Westerland, you're being called on. I'm gonna have you start. So you're gonna start at 8. We're gonna go around the table and do a count vote. And we'll do this repeatedly so we know what the 70% threshold is. So you're 8 and work around the table. You're 8. You start at 8. Okay. I don't count.
20. 21. 22.
23, 24, 25,
26. 27.
28. Okay, so we're starting with 28. First of all, I just want to do very briefly, I want to thank everyone, the steering committee, the COG staff, the jurisdictional staff, for asking great questions and then getting great responses from our technical staff, and then Cognitive putting those things out and getting those to you. I know it seemed like a lot of information to absorb, but I'm glad we were able to get it out to you, and believe me, we worked very hard to do that. So I hope you found it very, very helpful. One of the things, a facilitator or a mediator has a role in these processes. I was asking COG and the facilitation team exactly what my role is, and we talked about that. But one of the things I can tell you is that I think my role's part like being a mediator, and that is an important part of being a mediator is giving parties a reality check. I have no dog in this fight, and so I want to give you 2 important things to consider as we work through some very, very important issues today. These are for you to consider. Do with it what you will, but I think they're 2 important reality checks. Number 1, don't forget, this is a consensus measure. That means it needs 70% approval all the way through, okay? And when you're thinking about what you want to do, you need to think about that. What's going to get 70% approval? The second thing you got to remember is that this is a recommendation to the COG board, to FCTA and the county. It's a recommendation. If you want your recommendation to be taken seriously, it has to be grounded in reality. Because, for example, I meet in a lot of lawsuits, and a plaintiff might come in, I want $1 million. Well, if it's not grounded in reality, the other side doesn't take them seriously and just ignore it. So just think, again, you decide what you want to do with this, what I'm telling you. But I hope you just ground your approach here in reality and what is possible, not only to get the 70% of the steering committee, but also get the approval of the COG board, FCTA, and the county, if we want this measure to get on the ballot. By the way, I was just mentioning a little anecdote today. I stopped at Sam's Deli to pick up some lunch, and I was approached by someone. And that person walked up to me and said, your committee's going to blow up. Trust me, you're never going to get an agreement. And I said, with all due respect, you have a right to your opinion, but I believe in the process, and I believe in this committee, and I think you're wrong. Well, at the end of the day, I guess we're going to find out who is right on that one. But I really do believe in the good faith of the people on this committee, the efforts you're putting in. I believe in the process. I think we can do something really special here that is so absent in politics these days, reaching consensus, even though we all know we have very different opinions on this. So I'm really hopeful. I'm relying on your good faith, and I think it's well placed. So with that being said, let's move on. A lot of big things to talk about today. First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about accountability components. So you guys did submit some suggestions for the implementation guidelines on how to go about dealing with this. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about general category allocations and how to go about kind of getting to yes on that particular issue. Hopefully we can do that today. We're also going to talk about measure length, 20 versus 30 years, and we're going to talk about next steps. So with that, I want to jump into accountability components. I want to turn it over to COG staff. As you know, they compiled everyone's suggestions on comments on the implementation guidelines. They've also compiled accountability components in other self-help measures, so you can see what others have done. Now, here's the way the process is going to work out. The process is going to be, ultimately, COG staff is going to draft implementation guidelines. It's very much like regulations. It's going to be sent then back to the steering committee for your edits and comments. And then they're going to go back and then they're going to revise it based on your edits and comments. And then ultimately, it's going to come up to you guys for a vote. At some point, there's got to be 70% approval on the implementation guidelines. But that's the iterative process that's going to be going back and forth. It's going to take them a little while to actually draft because there's going to be a lot of detail in those implementation guidelines. But we wanted to make sure that we all understood what the components of those implementation guidelines should be. So with that, I'll turn it over to COG staff.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Okay, so if you turn to your packet, you'll see a plain-looking sheet, just a black and white sheet that has implementation guideline recommendations. This is a summary of all the recommendations that we received over the past week from your committee members in terms of the implementation guidelines. And we've summarized it for you there that you can take with you and read in detail. But as we go through the PowerPoint here, we've also kind of grouped them under 4 major categories. So if you can go to the next slide. Go ahead. Yeah. So under accountability measures, we have annual progress reports, and you'll start to notice some themes under these. A lot of people basically saying the same things. Annual progress reports of Measure C, income expenditures, planned future projects, updates of projects not yet completed with public review and comments encouraged. Evaluation should use guiding principles. Again, kind of that guiding principles notion, hewing all of that to the guiding principles, public comment periods for projects before they're rolled out. Perhaps use a dollar trigger to determine if a project should be reviewed for public comment or can be implemented without public comment. Next. The notions of transparency, again, very common themes throughout all of these. Transparency, equity, local control, public engagement, and sustainability. And again, all of these are captured in the handout that you have as well. Next slide. Active community engagement, repeated several times. In addition to annual report and audit requirements, a searchable public database. This was brought up as under the administration category as one of the subcategories. FCTA shall develop and implement a searchable public database that allows members of the public to be aware how funds are utilized and how they align with the guiding principles. There's that guiding principles nexus again, and any implementing guidelines requirements. As part of this, to develop a GIS map of investment by geographic location. And then this one, these two slightly different non-compliance consequences, return and withholding of funds, and a referral to an integrity unit or some such consequence. Next slide, please. Review periods. This is probably the one with the strongest trend. Comments of overall review periods of at least 10 years in a 30-year measure, for example, midterm reviews. So stated slightly differently, but you'll see the same comment repeated, a very strong trend, same comments repeated over and over. Review could not change the major categories nor the allocations to them. However, it could change the subcategories and their allocations. For example, in the regional connectivity category, the review could add, delete, or modify any major regional project. The review could also modify the implementation guidelines. If a 30-year plan is proposed, the review should happen every 10 years. So you see, again, that 10-year kind of check-in very commonly stated. Next slide. And then as part of one of the comments, in addition to a review period, that you would have a review committee. So this is separate and distinct from, this idea is separate and distinct from the oversight committee, a review committee that would have to be, would have a mix of jurisdictional staff and community interest groups and citizens. Comment that the RTP SCS roundtable is too large, but for jurisdictional staff proposes City of Fresno, Clovis, County of Fresno, a representative from the east side cities, west side cities, a member of the Fresno COG staff, and a member of the Citizen Oversight Committee to begin with. Next slide. A lot of comments under this one, but again, that consistent 10-year kind of mark for review. Everyone recommending a review. Public must be notified with at least 60 days to review and comment. Workshops to solicit public input on the east, west, and urban metro areas prior to a public hearing held by Fresno COG for a vote. Review and evaluation at the 10-year mark and at the 20-year mark. In the event that there is a 20-year measure, that there would be an evaluation at the 15-year mark with at least 2 required public meetings wherein the public communicate their suggestions and criticism of the measure. Next slide. Okay, moving on to the general category of oversight. Continuous study and review group, having a continuous study and review group to look at transportation trends throughout the state and nation and to ask the question, are there new or better way of doing things than what we're doing? Continue the Citizen Oversight Committee with at least its current powers and responsibilities, and to expand decision-making authority for the Citizen Oversight Committee. These are all ideas that came from this group. Next. In terms of amendments, the fourth major category of comment, public notification and input for public notification and opportunity for input. We had several comments under that general subheading. For biennial reviews and amendments to the plan, the public must be notified and provided up to 60 days for public review and comment prior to a vote. Workshops for public input on the east, west, and urban areas, so very similar to the oversight vote. No amendment can be issued without first giving members of the public an opportunity to weigh in and at the jurisdictional level. Next slide. Okay, so this is a kind of a general comparison, a broad comparison of multiple different measures throughout the state that are at least somewhat comparable to Fresno's. And the first 3 columns you'll see on the left-hand side are the existing measure and the in terms of review and oversight and governance issues. You'll see those in the on the far left. So the current measure, and then what had been proposed in the 2022 measure in terms of length of measure, the mandated review period, if there was one, in terms of citizen oversight, whether there was a citizen oversight committee, and then audits, the requirement for audits, and whether amendments were allowed. And then you see comparisons in addition to those two, the current measure and the proposed 2022 measure. You see comparisons to San Joaquin County, Santa Barbara, Contra Costa, Sacramento, Orange County, Tulare, Sonoma, and Alameda. And these are all their current measures, what they have right now. And so you can see, generally speaking, the kinds of safeguards, guardrails, and oversight that were built into those. And I believe you also have a handout on this as well. Oh, you don't have the handout? Oh, okay. So we can, but this will be posted on the website for you to review as well. So, so this is generally how others are handling this. And let's see, I think, is that it? Yeah, so this is the last slide in this presentation. So we'll let it sit up here for a minute, and happy to take any questions.
Yeah, that was a very fast presentation, Robert. And we have some time allocated for people in the steering committee to ask staff questions about these 4 general categories for the implementation guidelines. So have at it. Do you have any questions for staff about how the current measure works, how maybe other measures work to the extent that they're aware of how other measures work? That's right. So go ahead. Sure.
Robert, I have a question. Can you tell me more about amendments and give an example of an amendment?
Sure. So an amendment, for example, right now, the most recent amendment, basically there's a kind of a couple of different ways it's structured. A wholesale amendment, probably the best way to think about this, and Rose might be able to help me with this, but is if you're moving funding, for example, across the major categories, right? That is a different bar than if you're moving funding within the category. Okay, so for example, the most recent amendment was establishing the Safe Routes to Schools program, which is a one-time expenditure of about $6 million that was cobbled together from rather undersubscribed programs, the senior script, the ag van pool, and the carpool programs, about a one-time expenditure of $6 million that we pulled from those 3 programs for the Safe Routes to Schools program. In that case, the amendment to create that program starts with Fresno COG. It emanates from Fresno COG as the agency that is statutorily responsible for developing the expenditure plan, and then moves on, if it's approved, moves on to FCTA for ratification.
Okay, can I give an example? Actually, I just thought of something. Are you done? I'm going to interrupt you. Are you done?
I am now.
Okay, there you go. But I actually have a great example. Now, I'm not the trails guy, but I had it. So when we did trails in 2006, we had some money allocated. And for a number of years, no trails are being built. So I was getting a little frustrated. So I went to, Fresno and Chloe and said, what's going on? Well, Mark, we don't have money to maintain the trails, so we're not going to build any. So I said, well, maybe we need to change the measure and make an amendment and say, because I wanted to make sure that they didn't just spend all the trail money on maintenance. I wanted them to build new trails. I said, listen, I'll do a 2-for-1 deal. You can take Measure C money for maintenance if you go out and get twice as much in grants to build. And that was the deal. We made an amendment. It was approved by the board. So that subcategory of trails got changed to allow not just for building trails, but also for maintaining them. And I think that's a pretty good example of how you can modify or amend a subcategory. And it worked out pretty well because then they started building trails because now they had money to maintain them.
Right. So both examples, though, within the existing category, right? So changes within the existing category. Now, if what you're talking about is, you have a percentage allocation, for example, that, say 20% transit, and you want to move money from, broadly from one category into one general category into another, that's a whole different ball game. And that requires the public hearings and I'm not sure, but as I recall, that requires support from all the jurisdictions by resolution. It's very much like passing the original expenditure plan.
Because you originally told the voters, we're going to spend 20% on mass transit. Now you're changing it, they're going down or up. Well, that's changing what the voters voted for.
Correct.
But within a subcategory, like trails, and originally I wrote the trail section, and I wrote it specifically because I wanted them to build new trails, and I wrote it specifically for capital projects. I had no money in there for maintenance. That's why I had to go back and do an amendment so we could actually get the things built.
Right. And so that is the amendment process as it exists today. And that's a pretty, I think a pretty strong safeguard as it is, but that's where we are today. And I think you would find that to be common. Again, if you look at the screen, every one of those has an amendment process that I imagine is pretty similar for those. Rose or Brenda, did you have anything you wanted to add on that? Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but in the current measure, there's been a total of 8 amendments,
Right.
is what I saw on the website. So for the however many years this one's been in existence, it's only been amended 8 times, right?
Roughly, well, that's the 20 year.
The
Right?
20
That's
right.
since 2006. The 8
Okay.
amendments are 2006, right? Right. Yeah.
Okay, since 2006.
Right.
Then my question was, so there's currently an oversight committee that is supposed to be meeting and supposed to be doing, can you describe when the oversight committee is supposed to be involved and how that works? And if it's not worked in the last couple of years, why is that the case?
Probably the biggest obstacle that we've had with the oversight committee. Yeah, Brenda, please come join me here on this. Brenda has overseen the oversight committee for several years. But probably the biggest single obstacle we've had is getting people appointed to it, getting people to volunteer because there are geographic designations, representation that we look for the oversight committee. And so filling those spots has been difficult, but yes, they do meet regularly. And generally probably the biggest task every year is to review both the budget, right, at the beginning of the year and then the expenditures at the end of the year. Happy to.
So I worked to help start the oversight committee and I staffed it for 15 years and now I oversee the staff that staffs it. And in the beginning, it was easier to get members, I think, because it was fresh and new, but there's some limitations or some struggles with the way it's kind of outlined and formatted. There's 13 positions, 7 represent different supervisorial districts, and then 6 are community-based organizations. It can be anything from a high school group to a chamber, as long as it represents different sectors of the community. And so in the last, I would say, 5 years or so, it's been a particular struggle. We really had a hard time getting somebody, I mean, they're really specific, these positions, like unincorporated area west of State Route 99. That's a difficult one. That's been the hardest one to fill. Unincorporated area east of 99, and then different supervisorial districts. And this was put together with a breakout of the steering committee that put together the measure. There was a lot of, they met separately and had discussions. We did a lot of that in the 2006 measure. So I do think while they have been very successful, it was really helpful in the beginning because they have their own report, and their report asks cities how they're going to spend their money for that fiscal year. So it got them thinking, it got them used to reporting, it created accountability and reporting and all of that. It's just been a struggle. They still meet whenever there's enough content for an agenda. Gail is on the committee right now. Nick was on it. A number of elected officials were on it at one point. And so there is a limit. You can only be on it 8 years, which is 2 terms.
Right.
So-
And then what do they report? Who do they report to? Do they report to COG or do they report to the Transportation Authority?
They're an authority board to both, honestly. I'm primarily FCTA, but they report to both. Anytime that there's, I mean, they review a lot of different things. They have their own reports. They review any financial documents, how money was spent, how cities reported it, any of the audit documents. They write their own annual report at the end of each year, and no staff helps them with that. We just give them what they want. They write it themselves, and then it is published as a piece of the FCTA annual report, but the FCTA staff and anybody, they don't touch it. They don't do anything to it unless they ask me to just proof it for grammatical issues. So, and we report who's on the committee at that time, yada, yada.
Nick, go ahead.
Yes, talking about the amendment process. Yes, I've been, as Brenda said, I was on the Citizens Oversight Committee for 8 years, and I've been going to COG, Transportation Technical Committee meetings for 25 years, and I watched all 8 of these amendments go through the process. And from my perspective, there's been no significant community outreach on any of these amendments. They've been, in my opinion, basically an in-house process.
Nick, I have to correct you there because specifically in the beginning, when it started, there was a high-speed rail amendment. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I
Where they
remember.
wanted to allow some funding for purchase. There were community meetings out. I remember we hosted it at Hoover High School. We did announcements in the paper. There was quite a bit at that time. And the Oversight Committee was very helpful in saying, here's what we would need as community members to support this. And those things did occur. So they are asked if something big is going on. But I have to say I know when I was staffing it, we did do more. I think because so many things went online, there's been less as community meetings, but.
Yeah, you're right. The Citizens Oversight Committee was, when I was on it for 8 years, all the amendments were brought to the Citizens Oversight Committee for review. But from my perspective, subsequent, there's been very little outreach for getting public involved in amendments. And I think, once again, going forward, amendments should go out for public review. That'd be my comment.
Okay, the other questions? I'm sorry, I can't. Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me. You mentioned that it's hard to recruit people into the committee. What are some of the obstacles? I'm from the west side of Fresno County. What are some of the obstacles that you face on that side?
Just getting people to apply. That's really the only obstacle, is getting the word out. We do ads in the paper and online, on social media. FCTA usually handles that through Jeffrey Scott Agency that does their public outreach, and they purchase advertisements out there and recruit for it. And we just haven't had, over the years, just fewer and fewer people apply.
All right, go ahead.
With all due respect, I think the outreach, it has to be dependable. What is your audience? And, if you're trying to reach the west side, correct me if I'm wrong, SB, I don't think that a lot of people in that area, especially in incorporated areas, are subscribed to the Fresno Bee, read English media. So I think there has to be a lot of more intention and ways to diversify that outreach to really get the message to people who might be interested in doing it.
I agree. I do agree with you.
Chuck, do you have a question? And I'll get Veronica.
I actually have two. Have you thought about reaching out to the city managers of the rural areas?
Yes, we've reached out to the city managers, the elected officials. Just, hey, if you know citizens that are engaged and interested, please ask them to apply. We have vacancies that typically the supervisorial districts are more full. It's just that west side of 99 that's the hardest one. The rest of them are usually full. It's the community-based organization positions, I think. I don't know what the vacancies are right now. I didn't look before I came in, but we have had applicants lately. We just had a couple of new people add.
Now, since I was on this committee, can I be on the oversight?
Absolutely, yes. If you apply and you fit one of these positions, I don't know if that wants to be reviewed and reworked for the next, the next committee, as far as what the different positions are and how many people are on it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be part of the implementation guidelines. There's going to be something in terms of oversight, but the detail of that is going to be left to the implementation guidelines. Any more questions, Chuck?
Just one more. It says annual audits. Who does the audits?
That's through the Transportation Authority. They hire a professional audit firm to do Yeah, deep audits of all of the cities. And
Is
of the
that is that a
transportation.
CPA or something?
Yes.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Veronica?
Thanks. Robert, or Brenda, do you have an analysis of the current sort of, in my comments, I submitted in addition to what's already required by the Public Utilities Code for Fresno County. That's where the audit comes from. That's where the I can't say that, the biennial reviews come from. The process for making changes. Do you have that somewhere? Like, here's what's required by state law. Should FCTA place the measure on the ballot? So then we could do a side of like, here's what we want to add to that, which would include, Brenda, some of what you're saying around adjusting the oversight committee and sort of how it functions, its powers, and other responsibilities. That would be helpful to see.
I'm sure we can get that together. That comes from the FCTA. They're responsible for 99% of that, but I'm sure that we can get it.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Okay. Because I think it would be helpful for the committee to have seen, like, here's what the law already requires, but that only applies if the county puts this on the ballot, right? If that moves forward in that way.
Yeah.
And so I guess, but nothing, my point is nothing in state law or the section for Fresno County in particular preempts the locals to add beyond that, which is where I'm seeing a lot of the feedback around additional reviews, public notification and engagement, et cetera. Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah. Questions, Larry?
Yeah, so you're gonna have to refresh my recollection on this. I don't recall how it is, but I know there's some suggestion about reviewing or having public comment for when projects are going to get started. The memory that I don't have is that all of the projects would either be done through the county or the cities that do that, and each of them must comply with CEQA that would have their own noticing requirements, right? So if they're going to expand 2-lane to 4 lanes or do an overpass or consolidate, am I correct on that?
Well, broadly speaking, probably, but not in every case. So there are instances where FCTA might take the lead on a project,
sure, on
or
the
Caltrans.
freeways.
Yeah, or Caltrans.
But even in that instance,
The same. Yes, you have CEQA and also NEPA
okay, which
that are typically required.
that's
National Environmental Protection Act.
right. But I was
Federal-
just
the
thinking
federal
in
version
terms
of
of the noticing requirements. I don't remember that, but if it's done, depending on its designation under CEQA, but they have to follow CEQA for that.
Right. I mean, in terms of it, but that people tend to think of that more in terms of environmental as opposed to fiduciary, I guess. I mean, I think that's the takeaway that I had from the recommendations that were submitted to us had more to do with the fiduciary responsibility, tracking the money in essence. So whereas CEQA and NEPA are more about the environmental
Impact,
effect.
right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Okay. Hold on. Let's go on. Veronica, go ahead. Are you done, Larry? Okay, Veronica, go ahead.
I had another example, at least in my comments, when I was talking about public input at the jurisdictional level. It could function in the same way as I think the city of Fresno still does this, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is when they put together a capital improvement project list, they usually post it. It's discussed at a public council meeting prior to approval of that project list. And I think it was Mary Ann who suggested triggering a dollar amount so that it's not every project. It may be a very tiny project that doesn't necessitate it, but that's, anyway, reaffirming what Robert said around that's where that's coming from, in a way to give voters more confidence around this measure in particular.
Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? About online, anybody questions from online folks?
Gloria has one.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if any online first, then we'll get Gloria. Anybody online have any questions? Are they not there? Okay, go ahead, Gloria. Go ahead.
I'm curious as to the outreach. I know that you said you reach out to the west side and the east side of the 99. Do you contact like the water districts, the community center places
This is regarding the
The
oversight.
oversight committee? Yeah.
to get
oversight committee?
members on the?
I know we have, we have done some things on our side, and then the Transportation Authority that oversees the measure, they have worked and done some things on their side. I can't speak to what they do, but for us, without much budget, We have reached out to all of the contacts we have in our own databases, putting it out in newsletters and emails
Did it
and things like
include the
that.
water districts and different?
If they're in our contacts, yes. If for everyone that's in our contact, we have about 5,000 contacts with different agencies, community-based organizations, government agencies, individuals, special districts. That would be a special district.
I'm sorry?
Can I follow up your question?
Yeah, because I asked the FCTA one time and they said that because they're not eligible to apply for grants, they're not contacted. So I'm real concerned that
Well,
like
they can-
the unincorporated cities have some kind of boards, whether it's a cemetery board, water
was-
board.
I was going to say that special districts, right?
They would have to fit within the positions, though. Like I don't think that a special district would be a community-based organization. But somebody, I mean, we have members on right now. One of them was at Edison High School Parents Club member. We've had, Gail represents a women's in transportation group. I mean, it's a wide variety of people that can qualify to be on the oversight committee.
I'm not talking about whether they're gonna be on I'm saying outreach. Yeah. Because a lot of people like.
If they're in our, yes, if they're in our outreach
like-
database, which I believe they are. But I'd have to look at it to tell you specifically. But we do everything we can within our budget to outreach on our end. We put out social media, we boost those, and then FCTA does the paid advertising.
Can I make a friendly suggestion? There might be a way when we get to implementation guidelines to specifically address your concerns. How do we make sure that everyone's being contacted? And then we might have some ideas on Spanish language, I don't know, whatever it is.
And I do believe we do English, but I mean, there's always more that can be done.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any other questions? Okay, go ahead. Online?
Mark, are you there? His hand's up. Oh, wait.
Could he put his question in the chat?
He shared some things via email last night. And he
Okay,
had a
why don't you,
discussion.
sure, why don't you mention those if you want to? Do you have those in front of you?
I'm here now.
Oh, there he is. Okay, thanks, Mark.
No, the only reason my hand was up because I managed to disconnect myself as a panelist, so I'm pretty inept at this stuff. No, the only thing I brought up some things yesterday about oversight, but I think you've addressed all of them very clearly. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Anything else? So what I thought we'd do is maybe have a vote, just so we put it on record. We can go to the next slide. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I'm going to discuss what we're going to. It has to have a motion, has to have 2 seconds, or there is no vote. Let me just explain what we're doing. So if you go to the next slide, if I've got this right. Okay. So I was thinking if it's amenable to you guys, I can't make the motion. Someone else would have to make the motion. We have to have 2 seconds. And that just putting on record that these accountability components that we've talked about that Robert went over are things that are going to be addressed in the implementation guidelines. I just don't want to leave it willy-nilly to, finally get there. We want to say that, yeah, because I know there's some concern about what's going to be in the implementation guidelines. I thought this would be a way to make everybody feel comfortable that these issues are going to be addressed in the implementation guidelines. And so if we did that, we can put it on the record, and then we know that when we get to implementation guidelines, all those things we talked about have to be addressed. Again, remember, nothing is done until it's all done. So even if you agree on allocations at 70%, if you don't agree on implementation guidelines, we do not have a consensus measure. So you always have that veto power going through this. But the way the process works, and to my understanding, and COG staff can correct me, it will take them a couple of weeks to draft the implementation guidelines. And the idea would be just like they do in federal regulations. They send out a draft to stakeholders, and they ask stakeholders for their input and comments and suggestions. They go back and revise the regulations, and then set it up for a vote. And I would suggest we do the same thing here. Yes.
I think that for the details, let's say the composition of the Citizen Advisory Committee, that kind of thing, I feel okay. Like waiting until the implementation guidelines are drafted. But I think personally would prefer for us to decide, like, for instance, are we going to review it every 10 years? If it's that kind of thing, I think is important and substantial that
Yeah.
we should take the time to review now.
One of the things that, looking at that chart that he had on different jurisdictions, the three bottom ones, everyone agreed to. Something on amendments. I can't remember the chart. If you could bring up that chart again. It was audit, and there was I can't read it from here. Citizen oversight. So those three things we can all say that have, right? But I do think that's already captured in what was discussed. The review period, there's a number of ways to do that. We could deal with that now, or we could say when we get to the 10 and 20, we say, listen, this has to be, maybe a second question then would be, depending on what the steering committee says on 20 versus 30, the second question would be, okay, we're going to have a vote on how often is this going to be reviewed? Is it going to be midpoint, or is it going to be 10 years? We could have that vote if that's the way you want to approach it.
If you explain that, like modify to include what you just said there, then I'm okay with moving with the question.
Okay. Veronica?
I have a question, clarifying question. Maybe I'm the only one that's confused. I'm not, if you're asking for a vote on should these accountability components be addressed in the implementing guidelines, while there's a lot of overlap and agreement from the people who submitted comments, there are some stuff that are not in alignment. So how will staff resolve for that? Anyway, the reason I'm asking is that I'm not comfortable voting on should these accountability components be addressed in the implement, because I'm not sure, well, which one?
It's not a rhetorical question. I'll answer your question. They're going to have to draft some implementation guidelines that are going to go back to you. Now, if there is, let's say there's X versus Y, two different things, and for some reason, staff chooses X and say, I don't want X, I want Y. Well, in your comments, you go back and say, sorry, X ain't going to work for me, I want Y. If they get enough input from enough members of the committee that they want Y, guess what? They got to go back and change the implementation guidelines to meet what the majority wants, because it has to still get 70% approval. So does that help answer the question? Okay, let me try that again. My wife says I'm not very clear sometimes too. So I'll try it again. So if you have a lot of things are consistent. So it's going to be, I think, relatively easy about, the 10 years, and there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be easy. There may be some things in the suggestions that were made that are contradictory. So at some point, you got to pick one. So let's say COG picks one, all right, say option A, and they put it out as in the implementation guidelines, and you say, oh, I don't like A, I want B. Well, you write that in the comments. In the thing that goes back to COG with their implementation guidelines, say, listen, I don't want A, I want B. If enough people say, I don't want A, want B, guess what? The implementation guidelines A will be stricken, B will be put in, and they'll send it back out to you. Does this meet with your approval? The implementation guidelines have to get 70% approval to be approved. So the fact that there will be some inconsistencies, and it's not like a perfect free-flowing, yes, there may be some, but to the extent that COG staff gets it wrong, in the sense, no, I'm not attacking COG staff, in the sense that COG staff picks something that doesn't work for the steering committee simply says, no, that's not going to work for us. We don't want it that way. And then maybe there might be some discussion with COG staff, well, why did you pick that? And then there'd be a discussion with the steering committee, well, we think it should be this way. COG staff says, well, maybe that won't work for X, Y, and Z. And then you push back and say, no, wait a second, I think it could. And there's a conversation. It's an iterative process. It's kind of, you're working through it. But I thought that to have this on record to say, listen, we're not just going to blow by these comments. We're going to make sure that they are discussed in the implementation guidelines. But because I understand it's going to take staff a couple of weeks to write this up, if we do that now, it just stops the process. So my suggestion would be, I was hoping that it would get the support of the group, that we're listening to you, we're going to address them. You have complete veto power. It doesn't pass until 70% pass, not just general allocations, but also implementation guidelines. So to move the process forward, I thought that would be the best way to do it. So that's my suggestion. No, we now have 30 people. So We need 21 people to pass the measure. Vote. Yeah, Larry.
So if I understand what you're saying, Mark, is you just kind of want to throw everything in the basket, send the basket to COG. COG picks out of the basket what they think fits within the implementation guidelines, and then comes back to us.
Right.
We say whether we like it or we don't
Right.
like it. So,
Right.
but
You have time to review it, make your comments, make suggestions. COG then is going to have to go back and revise their initial draft because it's going to have to, ultimately, those implementation guidelines are going to have to get 70% approval by the steering committee. So it's going to be an iterative process, and maybe they'll get it right the first time. Maybe they won't. But it's a process we work through until we get to 70%.
because the reason I mean, I don't know whether we want to provide that feedback now. Apparently it's not the structure that you want to go on, but whether or not there's some items there that I just don't think, I mean, why would we reinvent the citizen oversight committee and have two citizen oversight committees or whatever? But anyway, I see where you're going.
But that's a good example to follow up on Veronica's question, right? There's two different ways maybe to approach it, and maybe they pick one, and Veronica likes it, but you don't. Well, then you say, well, I don't like it, or vice versa. And then there's, COG staff's going to have to put out something, and then this committee is going to have to vote on that something. And unless they're 70%, go back and do it again until we get 70%.
Well, with that idea in mind, and that it'll come back to us, it'll be their best attempt to try to understand what everybody's talking about here. I'll make a motion to, do the question, should the accountability components be addressed in implementation guidelines?
Okay, we have a motion.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Jen.
Jen seconds, and well, first let's get it, and then we'll open it up. Do we have a second? So we need a second.
Greg Garcia, second.
Okay, fine. Go ahead, discussion, Gloria.
When it says these accountability components, what are these accountability components?
That is a vague reference. I agree with you, and I wrote it. So I apologize that I was referring to what was that already came in from the from the steering committee.
The question.
Yes.
But I go back to the last meeting at the COG. I guess my concern is you're asking.
It's all.
If I can finish my question.
Yeah. Let Gloria finish your question, please. Go ahead.
I guess it goes back to the last meeting at the COG when they were asking the mayors to approve your contract, but the contract hadn't been written yet. So I guess I'm at the same level as how can we approve something if it hasn't been written? Oh, these.
Yes. I'm sorry. That's what these means. I should have said specifically.
Their ideas and
Right.
And I can see where you didn't.
No, I want to make sure Gloria's. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
We'd be here forever. We're trying to simplify the process by letting COG staff make this comprehensive. They're gonna have to use some judgment. But it's not going anywhere until we say it's going to. So have a little faith.
All right.
In ourselves.
Okay. Any other comments? So we've got a motion. We got 2 seconds, so we can put this up for a vote. I guess you're going to use the Mentimeter on this. You need your phone. You got to go on this.
Thank you.
Oh, should do one more count. Sure. Is that 30? We also, the folks online have to vote too. All right, we have approval. Yes, thank you, everyone. Yeah, we cleared a hurdle. Okay, well, I guess we can take, with that, we're going to celebrate with brownies and cookies for 5 minutes, and then we're going to come back. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. see. Okay, guys, we're going to go start again. All right, you had your break. Hello. Hello. We're back. Well, we can begin at least because we're going to try to stay on schedule. So what we're going to do now is, I guess, is the big enchilada, I guess, the thing we've been talking about, thinking about for a long time, and that's general allocations. We're going to begin the conversation with COG staff. They've got some things to present to you. I do feel a little bad about some people, like Veronica's not here and a few other people. Do you want the staff want to wait a minute, or do you want to go on with your presentation, or what? Oh, there's Veronica. Okay, good. So we're gonna go ahead and start then with COG staff's presentation on general allocations. They've got some information they want to share with you.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you,
Nick.
committee members. I'm just going to, last week we were supposed to walk through some comparisons to other measures, comps that we call them, what other counties are doing, what are the characteristics of those counties that kind of lead to their decision-making process of how they landed on those allocations, what Fresno has done in the past, kind of the history of allocations in Measure C and what they funded. Really to kind of get us thinking about allocations in regards to the future of Measure C. So I will walk through some the current measure, the prior Measure C measure in 86, what was done in 2022, just as an example, comparison points, and then we'll go and compare to other counties throughout the state. The same counties that were shown for the accountability measures, those same counties I'll show kind of where they landed on their allocation percentages. And then we'll open up to discussion and potentially a Mentimeter session to start us off here today. So if you go to the next slide. So this is essentially the historical Measure C. Now these percentages aren't exactly as they are aligned in the expenditure plan. We did some consolidation to more align with what this committee has set up for its measure. So you'll see in the regional program, we've also included the grade separation program. That's actually its own siloed 6% in the current measure, but we think it best fits really in the regional program and you guys, this committee has approved the subcategory of grade separation and the regional connectivity category. And then in the special programs, there is a slight difference. So the transit component here is 19.6%. That's actually what the transit agencies get themselves. There is the separate senior script program that's in our transit program today in Measure C, but really I put that in the special programs, or what would be the other category that this committee is developed. And so you'll see under special programs for the 2006 measure, it's at 7.6%, and that really encaptures all these smaller programs that don't necessarily fit a particular general category. So as you can see here, the 1986 measure, it was passed by 57, just over 50% of voters, 57% of voters in 1986. It went into effect in 1987. In the 80s, the threshold was only 50% plus one. That was changed, I believe, in the year 2000 to needing 2/3 if it's a government endorsed or sponsored measure. So that's why you'll see in 2022, even though it got a higher percentage, 58%, it did not pass. And so I just want to clarify that when you see these numbers, these percentages. So yeah, in 1986, really the measure was focused on building out the freeway system that you see in Fresno, primarily the 41, 168, and 180. 99 had already been established, and 41 had already been partially established, I believe, up to Bullard Avenue. But when the measure came in, it fully completed 41 through Fresno County and to the north, and then established 168 wholly and 180 as well. And then in 2006, there was kind of a desire to move away from such a large freeway measure. That much funding wasn't really required. The freeway system had mostly been established at that point. And so you saw a much broader kind of allocation between several different modes. Obviously, you can see transit, active transportation, special programs, all got an allocation where they previously had not. And then you'll see in the next slide that a lot of measures, they have a local streets and roads allocation or they have a local return allocation. There's a few that do both. Our current measure is one of those measures that actually has its own dedicated local streets and roads allocation, as well as a local return or flexible funding allocation. This committee did vote and did not pass a flexible funding allocation category. So just to want to qualify that, it did get 65% of this committee's support, but did not hit the 70% threshold. For the 2022 measure, you can see there was an understanding that the maintenance program needed a vast more support than it had received in the 06 measure. And so it saw 51.37%. The flexible pot went up to over 17%. The regional program has reduced in its importance, I'd say, for Fresno County, due to the nature of Caltrans themselves have not really been in the mode of freeway expansions. It's really gone into a maintenance program statewide. There are some areas that are still growing that can support wholesale freeway expansions, but for Fresno, that's really hasn't been the case. And so you'll see this decline from the 86 to what was proposed in 22, from 75 to 14. The transit category was reduced from 19.6% to 11.8%. The active transportation was reduced from 4 to 1. And then the special programs was reduced from 7% to 2, and the administration as well from 1.8 to 1.2. So this is the current kind of lay of the land in terms of past measures, the current measure, and what was proposed in 2022. I'll now move on to the next slide, which is the comparisons of other counties. Oh, go ahead, Veronica.
Quick question, if you have it accessible, what was the O2 measure, the categories for the O2?
I don't have it in front of me. Sorry. I can try to find that actually, but that is an interesting question. So here we've laid out all of the measures, including the 3 that I just shown you that were either enacted in Fresno or proposed. And then we look at several different counties, starting with San Joaquin County in 2022. I believe that's the most recently passed of these here. Santa Barbara in 2008, Contra Costa in 2004, Sacramento in 2004, Orange in 2006, Tulare, I think it's that 20, sorry, I can't see it, Tulare, 2006, Sonoma, and Alameda. One, I think there's a couple key things to take from here. As I mentioned earlier, you really have a local streets and roads or a flexible. Sometimes you see an allocation. Fresno, as one example, did do an allocation for both. Alameda County also had an allocation in both the local streets, roads, and a flexible pot. And so you generally see one or the other, but in a few cases, you do see both of those categories funded within a single measure. You can see in the regional program, depending on really the different counties and what their objectives are and kind of where they are in their growth pattern. You see a lot of variety in terms of the regional program, from 9% in Alameda County in their latest measure, all the way to, I think there's a 54% in Orange County. If you do go through Orange County, you'll notice that their freeways are some of the best maintained freeways in the entire state, and so they do put a heavy emphasis on their regional program. One point to make about the transit category, you can see there, I believe when in looking at this, every single category every single county that has it above 20% is supporting some sort of rail-based transit infrastructure. So in San Joaquin County, they have the Ultimate Corridor Express, or the ACE service from Stockton to San Jose. Let's see here. In Contra Costa County, they have BART and eBART. In Sacramento County, they have SAC-RT, which is their light rail network. Orange County has MetroLink. Let's see. Alameda, of course, has BARTs, and Sonoma has the Sonoma Marin Area Rapid Transit, or SMART. So really, you see that level of investment above 20% in all these rail-based transit focused counties, and to a variety of different levels of funding. Active transportation, you see generally hovering around 4 or 5%, some lower, some higher. Sonoma County, known for kind of their extensive trail network, as well as Napa, who isn't shown here, but they have it quite extensive and robust funding for active transportation, as well as Alameda County has a focus on this as well. The other categories you can see, similar to how Fresno has done it is usually in the low percentiles if they have one, and admin around 1%. So yeah, I think that I'll open it up here for any additional.
Paul, can I ask an initial question? When you look at all these, what do you think are the most similar demographically or I don't know, miles traveled? Which of these seem to me the most comparable to Fresno?
Yeah, so I mean, there is obviously Fresno County being in the Central Valley. I mean, looking at Tulare County, looking at San Joaquin County, there's definitely similarities there in terms of our demographic makeup and our types of mode share in the transportation network. Santa Barbara County has, similar in terms of its kind of road miles, like a lot of a large county road network. But yeah, not too many other similarities. I think each one of these has an element that can be comparable to Fresno County. Contra Costa has a similar population. Sacramento obviously being also in the valley, but much larger in its size in terms of population. So there's not quite like a great one-to-one fit, but this kind of gives you a good example of how throughout the state, depending on the types of infrastructure, where their growth patterns are, the types of density or population forecasts that you see, you have kind of a wide swath of different allocations by these general categories. Oh, go ahead.
Just what we're not comparing are those that are completely dissimilar, like LA or San Diego or San Francisco, so the Bay Area specifically, Alameda County has one of its own, but then you also have the greater regional area that is encompassed by the Metropolitan Planning Transportation Commission, for example. And so we're not comparing that because it's a much larger area.
Yeah, that actually brings up a really great point. A lot of the major metros, LA County, San Francisco, they'll have multiple sales tax measures for a particular element. So LA has 2 transit-only measures. One of them, that's permanent. It does not end. San Francisco has multiple transit-only measures as well. So, these are really generalized measures that are broad-based and funding the kind of main thrust of transportation in those counties. But when you get to the larger counties, they have just a lot more resources, looking at, they tax themselves 1 to 2 cents, where Fresno County is a half-cent sales tax measure just for transportation. So again, that's something to keep in mind here, is that we're really trying to compare. I believe most of these, I think there's 1/4 cent. I think Sonoma's is a 1/4 cent, where every other one of these is a half cent. And so, yeah, that's really the apples to apples comparison. Yeah.
So some of these jurisdictions have other transportation tasks specifically for light rail or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
I want to open up to some questions. If somebody has questions on any of these numbers, go ahead.
Thank you. I noticed that the 2006 measure is on the lower side for public roads, and the 22 one that failed increased it considerably. Is local roads going to be a priority for the re-up that we're working on right now?
I think that's a great question for this committee. There's been a lot of information shared with that committee.
It's your choice.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Let's yes.
Wow.
Okay. Let's go around and ask. Let's have other people. If they have any questions, let's see if we can get them addressed. Anybody have any other questions?
Madera is kind of much smaller than any one of these counties, where Fresno, I feel like it's more comparable to some of these medium-sized counties that you see here. Madera's is much smaller than Fresno.
Didn't Merced pass one?
I don't know. Did Merced pass one?
Does Merced have one in place? Yeah, they do. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things you have, I think, when you're saying in Fresno County, we've got the city of Fresno with 500,000 people. That doesn't exist in Madera County.
Yeah, there's no major in Merced or Madera County. There is no city with comparable population.
Okay, Amber.
So by comparison, Madera, the county-wide, their population is, I think, just over 100,000.
Like
There's
128.
Yeah, and so Fresno tops out at just over 1 million.
It's the city of Clovis.
So
Madera's the city of
must
Clovis.
be.
Yeah, Amber.
I was looking at the other San Joaquin Valley measures, so Tulare and San Joaquin, and I'm wondering what is San Joaquin County doing in transit that Tulare's not? To explain that
It's the
difference.
H train, isn't it?
Yeah, so they do fund a train service that's an intercity train service that goes from Stockton to San Jose. It's really for tech commuters. So that's a major component. They also run a lot of the Ultimate Corridor Express or ACE. And then they have actually a lot of regional bus service to BART in Dublin Pleasanton. So they run quite a bit of bus service over the 280 corridor, I-280, to the Dublin Pleasanton BART station. So they do fund services, transit services beyond essentially their county, with the recognition that San Joaquin County has really become kind of a residential community to the Bay Area.
Yeah, Larry, go ahead.
So I know you touched on it just briefly on the flexible funds category. And I don't have the background coming late to lunch here, but could you touch on that again? What was that again? And it was included in the 17% on the 2022. It wasn't included.
So the current measure
here not to include
Yeah,
that or
well, I'll let him explain. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Paul.
So I'll touch on this. So the 2006 measure has a flexible fund today at 14.8%. In 2022, that proposal also had a flexible fund at 17.69%. But what you see in other counties is that it's really either they have a local streets and roads or they have a flexible fund. There's a few, like Fresno has currently, that do both. This committee, maybe before you joined the committee, did take a vote to include a flexible funding category. It did not hit the 70% threshold.
It did get 65%. I think if we had the two people from Fresno, maybe it would have passed, but we lost it by two. It lost by 2 votes.
But can you explain, and this is part I guess I missed, is what was the flexible? I mean,
I
think I remember what it was.
A flexible fund is essentially, so it allows the jurisdictions or the agencies to fund any project. There is no limitations on the types of projects that are flexible. Yeah, within these general categories. So each jurisdiction could take their flexible fund allocation and fund active transportation projects or road projects or transit projects.
Okay.
It's essentially a flexible fund for any of the priorities that each of the jurisdictions have.
Okay, so it still has to be a transportation oriented thing. It's not
No.
Six Flags.
Can't just build it on. Can't just build a parking lot somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, I would primarily the local return or flexible funds category has been spent on road projects for the most part, local street and road projects, which is why you see either or, because typically that's the main, roads is the largest asset in any county's transportation network. So it does take a lot of the resources that a flexible fund would pay for.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions online? Okay. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, just kind of thinking over the flexible funds. So it got 65%, so it got pretty close, but didn't get all the way. What were the objections related to that?
I can't get inside people's heads. So I'm not going to answer that. I can't answer that.
My suggestion, I lost by 1 vote.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess maybe
I think, to speculate, I think there might be some distrust with electeds that they may not do what the steering committee wants them to do. There's some concern. They want to make the guardrails a little tighter and say we don't. So that's the whole issue of flexibility or not. Of course, the electeds want flexibility. They can do what they wish with the numbers. And this group may say, no, we want it a little more narrow. And by the way, both sides have to give a little bit on this. Right? There needs to be some guardrails, but it can't be so restrictive that they can't do anything.
Right. Well, and if I could just add on to that, and of course, sorry. So, I mean, at least for the 8 years that I was an elected official, I mean, as I recall, and it's gotten fuzzy over time. The flexible funds were incredibly important to hit choke points where choke points developed in the road system that hadn't happened before. I wish Scott Mosier was here because he would have helped me remember where we did it. But having that flexibility to do things that But it was always related to transportation. Yeah.
Remember, this is a recommendation to COG. It would not surprise me at all when they make their final decision that they add some local flexibility. That's very likely.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Simon, did you have a question?
Would it be easy for staff to get a breakdown of how the flexible funds have been used by each city?
Yeah, we do have audits. We would need to analyze that to get a full picture. But yeah, that is something that we can work on and present.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, the measurec.com website.
By each city and how they use the funds?
Is the flexible?
Like, I'd be interested. So if the local roads allocation is going to jump, assuming exponentially, Greg, then if all the funds in the past in the local spending or the flexible spending has gone to roads.
Not all of them, probably vast majority.
Well, that's my question. Yeah. It'd be good to see.
I don't know what the breakdown is, but my understanding is the vast majority have gone toward roads. So you can almost not quite combine those two numbers, but pretty ish.
And when we say to be more specific, a couple of points on this. To be more specific, when we say roads, we might be including improvements like ADA,
kind of complete streets,
cutouts, and the sidewalk improvements.
Kind of like a complete streets, right?
Right. Well, elements of complete streets. Right. The other point is we do have Nicole Ziba is the city manager of the city of Reedley, and she's happy to offer some testimony if you would like on how some of the smaller jurisdictions tend to use their flexible funding, and we can get information for you on how much has gone into flexible funding by jurisdiction. I don't know if we have the specifics at our fingertips about how they've spent it. I know we can get that at some point through the.
Can we draft
from 20? We do from 2012 on.
Can we draft you to come on up and just make a few brief comments about flexible funding in Reedley?
Well, and I can say that there were guardrails on flexible funding. There was a list of things you could spend it on. It was like lighting, studies, and I'm not sure specific. We did analyze that and break it down internally. We do have a spreadsheet of how they reported spending their money, but there was a large list. It wasn't just, hey, here's some money, do something with it. They had to report it out, and it had to stay within the designed categories.
Thank you, committee members. My name is Nicole Ziba. I'm the city manager for the city of Reedley. I've been the city manager there for 14 years. Having come from the city of Fresno, my joke with Reedley is that our entire budget is Fresno's rounding error. And so that's an important joke, though, because the flexible funding has really helped small cities like Reedley, where we don't have pots of money that we can pull from for other projects. So I would give you some examples of our flexible funding. We had an opportunity to do a major street project that ran across a railroad line. San Joaquin Railroad runs through Reedley, and they have about 5, 6, 7 crossings. Don't quote me on that, please, for the accuracy part, but multiple crossings. We had an opportunity to work with the railroad basically once. They're very difficult to work with, and so we were working on getting approval to improve the railroad crossing where the street goes across the railroad. We wanted an opportunity to then fix all of the crossings at one time because they are so difficult to work with, and because we knew that the funds, or rather that the project cost would go up over time. And so we used our flexible funding to improve the other railroad crossings that we didn't initially envision we would do. And so that's an example of flexible funding. We have used it for streets and roads, and I'll give you a current example just right now that's going to our council on Tuesday night. We have a CDBG road project at Rupert and Church that we're doing. That CDBG funding from the federal government does not cover the entirety of the project because costs have risen. So we're going to be using local Measure C flexible funds to fill in that gap. And don't quote me on the cost, but I want to say it's maybe $100,000 gap that we have. For a little city like Reedley, $100,000 is a lot of money to try to find somewhere. So that's what we use flexible funds for. It sort of fills in along.
Can I ask? I think Simon's question. Simon, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Simon's question was, what percentage of your flexible funding ends up going toward roads? Is that your question basically, or?
You know, honestly, I
Or
can get that
public
for you, but I don't.
transportation or.
Okay, so breakdown. Can you give us like a general breakdown of?
I cannot do that right now without completely just giving you off the, you know, they would be wildly inaccurate, I'm sure. So,
Can you say the vast majority goes toward roads? I mean, can you give it?
no, I wouldn't say the vast majority goes to roads. We use a lot to connect bike lanes. We use a lot to connect sidewalks if we have development projects that then are going to connect somewhere else. You know, off the top of my head, I would say maybe 60%, but I wouldn't say the vast majority go for local roads.
By the way, I can attest railroads are extremely difficult to work with.
Yes. So just to give you some color and flavor of what a small city might use it for. So
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Any other? Yeah, go ahead, Mona.
I'd like to ask about the active transportation category. We have 2006 at 4%, and we have 2022 at 1.1%. And this includes urban trails, rural trails, and also bike lane improvements, et cetera. So it's astonishing to me that it would go down nearly 3%. And I know that trails poll like really, really well.
Yeah. So I wasn't at COG at the time. When I looked at this, I was astonished. I mean, if you look at we gave more money in our admin budget than we did for the trails. So if I were here at the time, I probably wouldn't have advised that that was the case. But yeah, I actually wholeheartedly agree with you on that.
I can speak to that a little bit. The having worked on the 2022 measure, the logic behind it was the whether you buy this or not, but the logic behind it at the time was the difference was the 2006 measure was a 20-year measure, whereas the 2022 measure was 30 years. And so in an absolute dollar, from an absolute dollar basis, the dollar amount was higher. That was the logic. So the category was actually receiving more dollars because of the length of the measure. And so the percentage then was slightly lower. But the dollars generated over the life of the measure, which is what they were looking at, was higher.
I promise not to weigh in on trails, but I wouldn't say slightly when it's 3/4 of a cut. So no comment. No comment. So any other questions? Do we have any other questions?
I'll just have a comment. Since I'm on the Citizens Oversight Committee and we review all their projections. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, so we get their reports on how they're going to spend their money. And there is a category. We get a sheet on flexible funding. We make sure it fits the categories and it's going where it's supposed to. And then at the end of the year with the audit, did they spend their money like they said they were going to spend it? And when I came on board, it would just say street maintenance or whatever, slurry seal. But so I go, well, wait, where? So now they have to, we've made them tell us we are going to do this street from here to here and exactly detail what they're going to do. Because when I worked for Caltrans, we ran into a problem. Nobody ever went back out to check. Did it ever get? I mean, nobody checks. There was random checks, and a little town in Kern County said they were going to do something. Nobody ever checked. It didn't go to where they said it was going to go. It went totally somewhere else and helped a developer out. And just that one instance has always stuck with me. And I'm going, someone needs to verify that, yeah, they can say on paper they did, but I don't know. I think
That's a great point for the implementation guidelines to make sure we address that issue. Listen, with no more questions on general allocations, I'd like to go forward with a suggestion on how to get to yes on general allocations. So here is my suggestion. What we have, first of all, I think we need a range. One category can't get 100% because then that's not really reasonable. So I said, what is the maximum any category has ever gotten in the history of Measure C? The maximum has been 75% that went to highways. So what I'm suggesting is when we're going to give you guys an opportunity to do an allocation, few things. The maximum you can give any category is 75%. The minimum you can give any category is 1%. You have 100% to play with, but we're going to ask you to put 1% in as a placeholder for administration. Okay? So everybody, when you do this, and by the way, everyone has to vote. We really need everyone's vote here. We've had like 26 out of 30 people voting. Everybody needs to vote on this. So what we want to do is say, okay, we're going to give you 100% to play with. We're taking away 1% basically and saying, stick that, please, just so the Mentimeter works, stick that on 1% in administration. Take the other 99% and allocate it as you will to the other general categories. No category can get more than 75%, and no category can get less than 1%. Okay? So once we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a median, which is the middle number of the group. And then we're going to report that out. And then the way the process is going to work is, okay, we're going to get the medians for all the general categories. It'll be a specific number. You then will be given an opportunity, if you want, again, a motion, 2 seconds, to take a vote on saying, we like these median numbers for the general categories, submit them to the COG board. This is what we think in terms of general allocations. Or if it's not successful, we'll go, okay, we'll take a second step. The second step is we're going to create ranges. If you can't accept the medians as they are, we'll say, okay, let's give a plus or minus 20% from the median. So let's say one category gets 60%. So my math, Paul will correct me on my math. 20% would be, okay, that category then now has a range of 48 to 72 is now the range, okay? And so if we do that, we'll have ranges. Then I'll ask you a question. Do you want to submit the ranges of the general categories to the COG board as your final decision on general allocations? Has to vote by 70%. If you say no, say, okay, the next time, not this time, we don't have time, next time we're going to drill down on those ranges and come to a specific number on each of the general categories based within those ranges. And to be very honest with you, I have an idea how to do that, but I want to figure it out a little bit more to make sure it's fair. But that's the process that we're going to do, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give you the opportunity to allocate percentages to all of the general categories. Please put 1% in for administration, then take 99% and allocate it as you will, but no category gets more than 75%. Your total allocation has to equal 100. They're keeping track, so if you end up with 99, someone's going to say, excuse me, Mark, you forgot to add some. You have an extra percent to play with. All right, so I thought we'd give you, I want this to be secret ballot. I don't want gamesmanship. I'm trying to reduce, I want your own personal judgment on this. So I'm thinking, how much time do you think you need? 10 minutes, 15 minutes to do that? 5 minutes? What are your thoughts on that? That I didn't really know how much time is appropriate. Would 10 minutes be appropriate for you to figure that out?
Revisit the flexibility category.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be generous here. I know you have, yes.
You know, Mark, I hate to be the cog in the.
Oh, don't use that term in this office, please.
But what would be the process if I wanted to reconsider the flexibility category?
We've unfortunately that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed. We've already voted on that. Now, I think at this point it's sailed. Maybe at some point, if there is a strong change of opinion and people want to revisit, maybe we revisit that maybe later. But I think right now, I think we have to go forward with what the committee has decided to do. It did not pass. And if we allowed that, then everyone that didn't pass could come back and. Right. So I think we have to go forward. The reality is, like I said, I cannot predict what the COG board or what the county is going to do, but I would assume that they would like flexibility. And I would assume that when they get your recommendations, they're probably going to do something along those lines. Again, my suggestion to them is don't ask someone for their suggestion and then ignore it. That's a bad idea. So that's the guardrails for those elected bodies. But if there is a little bit of issue, and there will be some tweaking. I don't expect those boards necessarily to accept exactly. Maybe they will, but chances are they're going to probably tweak this a little bit. Depends how far they tweak it. And then you may say, well, wait a second, that's not what we want. And that's your decision to go in your different directions. But right now for this process, what I want to do is keep moving it forward. And I'm going to give 10 minutes. Now, is the Mentimeter set up?
I'll turn it on right now if it's ready.
Okay, so you have 10 minutes. You're on the clock.
It is on right now.
And you have, please put 1% down for administration. Everybody put 1% down for administration. Take the other. Take the other 99% and allocate. Remember, every category gets at least 1%. And the max you can give a category is 75%.
One thing, thank you
No,
Robert, for that. I gotta.
No, I don't think can we do like point something?
So the way it'll work, and I do want to clarify that in the Mentimeter, you're going to see plus 10 or minus 10. In the box that's in between there, you can put in whatever percentage allocation you'd like. I'm not sure if it does a point. So yeah, so you'll have to put in a whole single number.
It's
but with
imprecise.
ranges, if that were to be developed, we could talk about 0.5% in the future, but we like to start with an allocation with the whole percentiles. I'll show you.
Let us know if you need any help.
Brenda, but if someone has a problem, like Nick has a problem, it'll show up that he hasn't voted yet, correct? Okay.
Oh, we have 8, but it's not showing. Oh, the responses are hidden. Oh. So I just go hit 8 and it'll show. Oh, okay. Just gonna actually leave it like that.
You have about 5 minutes.
Her votes are valid. Just a wheel. But we'll also do it once this. The whole file.
I think our society got like 20 more years now, or what, how you want to define, like, define the context. But these are the dogs, like you were saying, it's the whole right for they don't keep how can define themselves. I think that based on that, I think there's a lot of challenge.
Okay, you got about 2 minutes. Did it work for you? Well, they'll tell you. If you're, it doesn't show up, they'll tell you.
Really hard. You know, when I saw those stop signs in Boulder, so the first time that have the lights are on. I used that back in the 80s when I was out in the fog and.
Yeah. 22. I mean, I haven't blown through a trail. Right through those things. It's the crossings. Didn't stop. Where's your turn?
Yeah, canal and McKinley.
We're at 25 out of 30. Chuck was having trouble, so
Okay.
we need a few more
Oh,
minutes.
okay,
I'll
okay.
let you know when it hits
Okay,
30.
Okay, okay.
McKinley, I know. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. You can't use it otherwise. You can on the embankment, on the road. You build it in, you know, right? You build it in, you build a well. There's some trees that are not being fixed.
The other thing that I got a problem with is they have the bar fence on the right side, but not where the canal. So if you're walking the kid's gonna stick through the barbed wire.
They have wire.
The kid's gonna.
Yeah, I know.
There's gotta be, maybe they need some emergency thing where there's ropes.
30, I'll verify.
What we do here. When you get done with this, you and I are gonna talk.
Yeah, because I was in West Fresno and I saw their trail and it's got trees, it's got nice soft surface.
Don't give me stuff. You got,
And
you
then thinking like you're walking. 'cause I
you just
used to
lit
work-
my fuse.
I used to work in the fields and we were walking the canal, the reflection of the sun.
No, this could be, this may be. Who by the way, executives come in, they want to relocate to Fresno. They'll come in and they see a beautiful trail. Yeah, great first impression. It's just asphalt. No, boy, you're even more bad about than I am, but I'm pretty mad about it. But we will address that. I'm gonna enlist you.
Millbrook Fence.
But here's the good.
I hope.
Yeah.
Just an admin thing, can you just remind us to sleep into the break so the people they stay for me, that would be better for me.
Hallelujah. I will do that. I'll do that.
Are you? Ready?
How we doing over there? Do you know who that is? Okay, guys, time is basically running up here. There's one person, just one person that hasn't voted. All right, everyone. Hello. Hey, everyone. There is one person who has not submitted their vote. We're going to give you 60 seconds and then we're moving forward. So whoever that one person is, you can't tell who that is?
No, not right
They
now.
can't tell who that is. So whoever that is, please submit your vote. No. The second thing is Paul's going to have to sit down and calculate the numbers. It'll take him a few minutes, but I want to get moving here. So I'll put you on a stopwatch. We're going to put you on a stopwatch here. 60 seconds, the last person to vote. Yes, continue to socialize. He's okay. Time is up. Paul, did you get that last vote? Paul's checking right now, but I think now Paul's checking the voting. The voting is closed, and he's now going to calculate. It should take him about 5 minutes or so. So grab something to eat, talk amongst yourselves, or whatever. Hey guys, I just want to give you a little update. It's going to take a little while longer because some people's math skills, they voted for more than 100%, so we have to get that fixed for those people. I'm only telling you what they're telling me, so.
There and select name.
That's like your basic. That is almost a day. Well, yeah. But, you know, this they're missing. What? 5, 6, 10. To know, oh, this is above a certain threshold. What are we doing for this? So they absolutely. This is close, and I know a tremendous amount. Oh yeah. This is it's really. Yeah.
Well, that's the issue. See, but that's what's well, yeah. But well, unless, that's what
Mary Ann just made a suggestion. I'm going to ask you guys something. What we wanted to do was get these numbers and then do a run because we've got it calculated, then give you the numbers here, what it means for a 20 or 30-year measure annually and total. But we could just go ahead without having that information, go ahead and vote on 20 versus 30. In the essence of time, I don't know how you feel about that. As you remember the last time when we looked at 20 versus 30, there was a significant difference in revenue from 20 versus, I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, 88% more revenue for the 30-year measure total and 26% per year annual money, more money if it would.
Percentages and
Okay.
revenue. Yeah, in your
So,
packets, there's a sheet.
So while
for
they're
revenue.
while they're figuring out the median here of these general categories, in order to save time, if you want to, we could take a vote on 20 versus 30 if that's what you want to do. I don't know what your feeling is on that. Yeah.
I'm a visual person. I think kind of what we are voting for, to see that up for me would make more sense, at least for myself visually.
Yeah. How much? I know we scheduled this for 5:30. This is really, really, really important stuff. I know some people have to leave. But if you can't, can we stay around for a few 15 minutes or whatever to get these things resolved? Because our next meeting isn't for 2 weeks. Okay. If you're on Mentimeter, you could still vote. But then we got to make sure we know who's on Mentimeter.
Some folks will be leaving at 5:30 on Zoom. I know that for sure.
Okay, so let's go back and we had Mandeep said uncomfortable voting on 2030 without having the numbers. That's the way it was set up this way because I agree with you, but I'm also looking at the time and how long it's taking for us to get the medians. So is there anybody else have any feeling on this? Any thought on this? Any groundswell of let's get to 2030 or stay where we are and just get this thing done?
Let's vote. We're going to have to vote anyway.
Okay, there's
However it
one that
comes
says
out.
let's vote. Anybody else wants to get to the 2030 vote right now?
I say vote.
Gotta be motions.
Yeah, you probably have to have a motion. We probably have a second, 2 seconds, and then put it up for, do we go forward in the 2030 vote?
Are there any questions about the handout? Does everybody have the handout that gives you the aggregate? So this is the aggregated numbers on a percentage basis, starting with 0.10%, and then all the way from 0.10 to 100% on a 20 versus 30. So this doesn't break it down by category, obviously, but it does give you total revenue 20 versus 30 based on the percentages that are listed on the sheet. So you can kind of cobble together in your own head how much revenue you're talking about. And based on the percentages that you assigned for a category, you can calculate how much money that would be, for example.
Right.
Based on a 20 versus 30 scenario.
Yeah, Larry.
So if I understand the handout, what it shows is at full revenue gathered from a 20-year is almost $4 billion. while a 30-year revenue is $7.3 billion.
Correct.
Almost 7.4.
Almost 7.4
Right.
for the additional
10
10
years.
years.
Yes. Yes.
That's a really huge number. For
Yes,
the
it is.
additional-
And staff can speak to that. The numbers really accelerate in those last 10 years. That's why the average, the annual average is 26% higher per year under the 30-year measure. Because the last 10 years really accelerate things.
And again, this was assuming now, this is a forecast, right?
Right.
So this is assuming an annual increase of 4%.
Of
Okay.
sales tax.
Right. And, revenue forecast. And, the 4% is conservative relative to the current measure actuals. So the current measure actuals are running at about 4.26, 4.3%, something like that. That's current for the current measure. So some people would say, well, you're still not being conservative enough, but relative to the current measure, we're being more conservative than the current measure.
Right. Okay.
Okay, Gail, go ahead.
I think a really good point between 20 and 30 is the issue of bonding. And I know what that's done to other counties, especially Tulare County. The fact that they were able to leverage their money with that bonding.
Right.
So to me, that's a really important.
I want to go, I want to bring it back though, because we're running out of time. If you want to vote now on 20 versus 30, I would need a motion in 2 seconds, and then we'll take a vote. For 20 or 30 to pass, it needs to get a 70%. One of those numbers needs to get 70%. It doesn't get 70%, it doesn't pass. So do you want to take a vote now without getting the median numbers? Because I don't know if we're gonna have time for that, and I want to get something done here. Someone's gonna have to make a motion. It'll have to be 2 seconds, and then we'll go forward. Yes, Nick.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Lee makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second Jen.
Jen and
He's made a motion for what?
the motion is to have a vote on the
Motion to have a
20
vote.
versus 30.
So it's a procedural vote to determine whether we're going to vote.
Yes.
Got it. Thanks.
Why,
I-
why not just make a motion to, someone say, I make a motion to vote 20 or I vote 30?
You want to just move, we could skip that process.
Votes then.
Right, we could skip that process and go right to, do we want to have them do a vote?
Well-
Fine, we're going to skip, if that's all right with you, Lee, I think it might be. We're going to go right to the question, the motion, if this is what you want, Lee, is 20 versus 30 is going to be the vote. Not a poll, I'm asking whether to have a vote. We're going to have a vote on 20 versus 30. Is that okay with you?
Choice here.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Jen seconds. Do we have a second? Is that Mary Ann? Okay. So with that, can we use, is Mentimeter going to work now, or do we just do this on, hold on one second. Well, we're going to do, how many people are online currently?
They're speaking directly to Mike because they're having a hard time hearing all of you.
How many people are online? Okay, if there are 9 online, okay, 7. So Larry, you're 8. And we're gonna go around the table to see how many people we have here. So, okay, Larry, you're now 9. Okay, Mona, go ahead.
14.
16.
19.
20. 23.
24.
26.
27.
29.
Okay, so we have 29 people. And so is the Mentimeter working, or can we just do this on a piece of paper? Okay, then bring up the Mentimeter and we'll do it that way. Let me do the math on this. So 29 people.
20 threshold is 20.
There's 9 online. Is he back on?
7.
Okay, 30, back to 21. The magic vote is 21 for most bets. So either 20 or 30 has to get 21 votes to pass. So when they bring it up on the Mentimeter, you can vote. Or we can just get a piece of paper and just put 20 or 30 on and just get it done.
What is faster?
Well, probably paper, but the only online people that are going to have to give us their. So can they move to many
I
meetings?
don't have, nothing came up on my screen.
I'm asking.
You guys. Nothing came up on my screen.
They're gonna move the next
On paper, if you want to do it.
Want to do paper, but we still have the 9 people that are online.
I understand.
Okay, here's what you're going to do. I'm sorry, you're going to have to sign your name so we don't have duplication of votes. So could you put your vote for 20 versus 30, or just say NA, whatever. Well, I said no, you got to vote 20 versus 30. 20 versus 30 with your name. We'll collect them. At least we'll add it in this group. Oh, it's up? Okay. Never mind. All right. 20 or 30. Yes, it's 20.
No.
20 versus 30.
Ignore that. Yeah, what's the motion?
The motion is, do you want this measure to be 20 years or 30 years? One of those 20 or 30 has to receive 70% to pass. Otherwise, we have not resolved that issue.
It makes no sense. Go 20, 30.
I think we can discuss if you'd like. There's been a second. There's been probably a thorough discussion of this already. We are running up against a clock, unfortunately. We're at 5:27. People are going to leave at 5:30. So I think we should go forward with the vote. It's up. It's up. So thank you.
Yeah.
And again, the threshold is 21.
21 is the threshold, I think, if we still have the 9 people online. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. They texted, we have 21 at 30? We have 21 at 30. 30 years is the measure going forward. Okay, the last thing we're going to do, and you guys can leave if you want, there's one person that texted the message because the Mentimeter wasn't working. So we're at 21. The proposal, the recommendation of this group is it's a 30-year measure. Now, the last thing I wanted to do is I wanted to get the median, and get the median number for the general category allocation. So they're getting the numbers for us right now. Yeah, hold on, guys. Stop for just a second. Let me just see if we can get this thing done. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the median number. We may not get to it today, but what I wanted to ask you to do was, do you want to go forward to the COG with just the median package, all the median numbers, and say, this is our general allocation? Oh, now, wait. You don't know what the numbers are yet. So that's still jumping the gun. That may be your answer, but that's jumping the gun because we don't know what the numbers are. The second, and maybe it will be no. Then the second thing is, okay, we were going to give a plus or minus 20% on all the median numbers. Then the second question was to you was going to be, okay, do you want to go forward to the COG board with those ranges? I'm guessing maybe the group is probably going to say no to that too. And then we go back finally and say, okay, then the next meeting, what we'll do is we'll deal with the ranges and we'll work to get a specific number within those ranges at the next meeting. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so we need the median number. I'd like to get a vote, and Veronica might have gauged the room very properly and correctly, then maybe the answer is no, but I don't know what the number is yet. So, and if we have time to get that vote, that would be great. We can also give you at least the ranges, and we can come back next time and say, do you want to submit the ranges or do you want to get more specific within the ranges? And that's fine. But I would like to get a vote on, do you want to send forward the median number package numbers? And I think we need to do that. You need to know what the numbers are. And they said they have them. So are you putting them up for the general categories? What is it, 5 general categories? No, they just have to put them up. No, they're giving us the median.
That's what the electors want anyway.
First time.
Yeah.
Today I was in another advisory committee. They were talking to me and I was like, I am very, based on an experience that I have, advising me right now.
No, they're not gonna throw this out entirely. Because if they do, the word will get around. That's what they did.
Okay, real quick. Sorry, guys. Just to explain what's happened here. So when we did the median calculation, it's not zero sum, meaning when you isolate each category, we're taking the median number of each one of those categories. And so there is a remainder left over. As you can see, it's adding up to 91% when you take the median numbers exclusively. So that's where we're at with the medians as taken by the committee. It's not adding up to 100 because it's the median of each category. It's not the total.
Very good news. So here's what we can do. Maybe we skip the vote on do we submit the median package to the board, because I think the 9% would go, I guess, local flexibility, but I'm not sure you want to do that. So maybe what we do is we hold it here and we say, okay, these are the numbers. And next time we revisit this, maybe with I don't know how you feel about a plus or minus 20% on either side of these numbers, which allows you to play with that 9% and put it into one of the other categories as we're doing negotiations. That 9% would be just extra to put someplace.
Are there any questions about the math because we don't want anybody worrying about how we arrived at this? Does this all make sense? Okay.
Okay.
So
So
just want to make sure that there's no concerns about the math.
Median by category?
yes.
Right, but the total does not add, by virtue of it being median, it does not add to 100, because the 100 is, the median by category then produces a median for the total.
So you have that extra 9%,
right,
that you can then, in your negotiations, whatever, can allocate to one of the other categories.
So it kind of forces us then into a range, essentially. That's kind of, we're going to almost by necessity have to go into.
What I would suggest we do is agree, if we couldn't agree to a plus or minus 20% range for each of these numbers. Okay. Now we can't do it with the 9%, right? We can use that number just to allocate as we need to, but the other numbers we could do a plus or minus 20%. So for example, what is it? What's roads? Was it 50%? Right. So roads was it 50%, 52%? 52. So if you multiply that by 1.2, that's 62.4 on the top end. And then on the bottom end, it would be whatever, 80% of that number. So 52 times 0.8. That would be 41.6% on the bottom. So that's the range would be. Well, but that's for you future. You decide what the ultimate, you may decide, I don't want to send this to Cogboard. Right. What you want to do. And right. Right. And you also have now this 9%. So you may decide, hey, I want to put 9% to public transportation, or I want to give 5% to transportation and 4% to roads. You have that 9% now flexibility that it didn't think we were going to have. We have that now. But you also have the range within each of these categories. So there's a range. I said I want to say, I say 62.4% at the top end and 41.6 at the bottom. Let me do it. It was 1.2 times 52. It's 62.4. 62.4 on the top end, and what did I say, 41.6 on the bottom end. But you also have now 9%. So potentially, if you were like, I'm all for roads, you could put 9% onto 62.4%, and now roads all of a sudden become 71.4%. This is the committee's decision. Okay, so with that, I don't know if I need, because we're not putting this forward to COG. We're not putting this forward to COG, but what I'm going to suggest to the committee is that we come back to you with a range in all of these general allocations, except other. We'll leave the 9% there, I guess, to play with. But there'll be, all the other categories will be a plus or minus 20%. So that'll be your range for the other general categories. And then you'll have the 9% also to also put wherever you want at some point. And that's going to be the negotiations. The negotiations is going to be, where does it land within the range, those general allocations? For example, roads between 41.6 and 62.4. But you also have the 9% to do wherever you could add. Maybe if everybody agrees, oh, we want 62.4 for roads, but I have 9% here. I want to allocate a little more toward roads. I want to put 3 or 4% and then push that up to 65% or 70%. The committee can do that if they want to, because they have that 9% to play with. They could, no, I don't want to do that. So that's going to be your decision. Does that make sense?
No.
Let me try it again. So there's going to be a range of plus or minus 20 between these median numbers for each of the general categories, with the exception of the 9% that we're not adding here, because it only goes to 91%. So there's 9% kind of off to the side. All these other categories will have ranges. Maybe what you're going to then decide to do is, I'll say, okay, but between 41.6% and 62.4, where do we land on roads? And then, but you also know you've got that 9%. So you can allocate that 9% either as a secondary question or part of that calculation, or no.
Allocated all at the top of the range, we would be over 100%. In aggregate, I think we would want to be up.
Okay, so how would you do it, Scott?
I'm just saying I don't understand the math that you're suggesting, because it's kind of the way that.
Because
We either have 9% or we have.
I'm just trying to think of how we do that. Can somebody have a suggestion? Go ahead. Yeah, Amber.
Yeah,
How do we do this?
that surplus 9% is going to shift depending on if people max out on everything or they go to the lower end of that range on everything.
Okay.
And so then everyone's going to have a different either surplus or deficit to deal with,
Okay.
depending on how they work with those other numbers.
So what would you suggest we do going forward? Do you think we just leave these numbers as they are and then deal with them in future negotiations?
No, I think just broaden. You're saying everyone gets that 9% to play with, and
Yeah.
in reality, they're all going to have different numbers to work with depending on what they do with the other categories. So then they decide what to do with that extra if they have extra left.
Okay, so what is the next step? I'm just trying to think, what's the next step forward? I thought maybe ranges would be helpful to give people an idea. Maybe we just go forward with these numbers, and next time we just negotiate, okay, here are the numbers that we came up this time. We now need to take that and reconfigure it so it comes up to 100%.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, not to complicate things, but at least for myself, it goes beyond just a range or a percentage or a math issue. Like, we have all these questions that were answered by the experts that question sort of the needs. The different plans call for different unfunded needs. So I would want to have a conversation around that too. And I don't think it's a 9% this or that and that's it. I think that there's a whole bunch of more context here.
Okay, so the suggestion would be then on October 2nd, when we meet again, we want to get to some numbers. This is at least a general idea of where people are. We're not there yet. Okay, this is just a general idea. And maybe we can do is table it at this point and say, okay, this is what we're working with. We're going to have to come back next time, and we're going to have to spend the whole 100% in these categories, right? And then the question becomes either we go with then ranges, or we go back to median, and then we try to work it that way. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm making sense. So let's just say we table it at this point. Does that make sense? The table where we are now. Yeah. So we made some progress. Let's look. There's a lot of good material that you guys received. So next time we'll deal with these numbers. We're not talking about ranges. We're going to deal with these numbers, and try to come up with 100% allocation. So no 91%, 100%, right? And we'll take it from there. Does that sound okay? Okay. Yes.
Will we have access to the spreadsheet so we can think through what the numbers
Yes.
mean?
Yes. We'll get that to you. Thank you for your patience. This is, by the way, before you go, a few things. Take a look at the agenda. It does have the next meetings. Don't forget that. Number two, please remember, this is an iterative process. We're kind of building the plane as we're flying it. So please be patient as we work through some of these things. And thank you very much for your time.
And note that we have added an October 2nd meeting.
Yes, note October 2nd, next meeting.
October 2nd.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. Trust me, this is
Could happen. That this is the bottom. This is the bottom number. Now we're 9%. Just trust me. This is good. Should have just been like, this is the bottom number, but it's okay.
But we got.
You know, that'd be the biggest allocation it's ever gone.
It's a project turn off.
Yeah. Okay, so I got a rain out today. That's what it. Even my school hex. Yeah, but maybe match.
Do you have a?
Thanks, Simon. Hey, you drive home. Well, not one that is a speed hump. No worries, thank you. Yeah, yeah. I live by, so that's you. I'll be on the way.
Oh, that's
For that.
That's great.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm not gonna do that. Thank you, Nick.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Again.
Sure. Thanks, Greg.
Turn the Zoom off.
Oh, wait. Wait, there's something right to
Right, turn this damn thing off.
turn this off.
No, don't.
Can I minimize it?
I forgot my water. Thank you.
This is the Zoom.
Yeah, we can't. Well, that's the.
No, I don't want to restart the dang thing.
This is.
So. Ready for cocktail?
Trying to figure out how to turn it off.
You're trying to figure out
How to turn it off.
turn what off.
My machine.
Oh, well, it's his phone. Give it to him.
No, it's mine.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah, I brought it.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm trying to figure out how to turn it off.
Well, okay. Wouldn't it be on your?
Yeah, but it's